This is a story called The Little Monsters, Part 6, The Flu Outbreak. It's a school day and as usual the Little Monsters gang don't want to go, so they arrange to meet up at their usual place. However, instead of going to school they decide to play truant. Even though it's winter and it's bitterly cold and miserable, they went and played on the park. After a while they got bored and they were cold and hungry. Stumpy said, "Let's go to the shopping centre and get something to eat because I'm really hungry." "You're always hungry," said Creeper, making everyone laugh. Then she said, "I'm cold and hungry too, so I think it would be a good idea to go to the shopping centre." When they got to the shopping centre they got something to eat and then they went in a shop to buy some sweets. After that they decided to mess about. They ran in and out of shops, knocking things off the shelves. Then at the time they should have been coming out of school they all made their way home. When they got there they all ate their tea and then they all met back up. They went to an empty plot of land that they'd heard some other kids talking about and found a tyre swing. They played on the swing until it was time to go home. The following day they decided to go back to the swing instead of going to school. They stayed there until they got hungry. Then they went to the shopping centre, and after they'd had their lunch they decided to run in and out of the shops. Bumpy decided that she would bump into people on purpose, and in doing so she knocked quite a few people off their feet. They all thought this was hilarious until they spotted a very angry looking security guard walking towards them, and they made a run for it. Thankfully they got away. The next day they played on the swing again instead of going to school. However, it started raining heavily, so they went to the shopping centre again. Yet again they got up to mischief. Then they saw two older boys push an old lady over and take her bag, and they stopped them, helped the lady up and got her bag back for her. The police arrested the two older boys and the old lady thanked the gang for helping her. The kids were about to go back to the swing as it had stopped raining. Then they spotted Kickers and Stampy's mums shopping together, and they ran in the opposite direction hoping that they wouldn't be seen. Thankfully they weren't. However, what they didn't realise was that Mrs. Applejack had rung their parents to find out why they hadn't been in school all week. Of course the kids' parents had no idea that they hadn't been to school all week. When the kids got home their mums asked them how school was and they just said it was fine. Then they asked what they'd learnt that week. When the kids couldn't answer their parents told them that they knew they hadn't been to school. The kids were smacked hard on their bums and sent to bed early with no tea. For a whole month they weren't allowed out and their parents took them to school and picked them up at home time. After this, Mrs. Applejack made all of them stay in at playtime and lunchtime to catch up on the work they've missed, and she gave them extra homework. Everyone thought the kids had learnt their lesson, but they hadn't. As soon as their parents let them go to school alone, they started playing truant again. However, this time they were caught red-handed, as their parents followed them. They were smacked hard on their bums again and dragged back to school by their ears. A few days later, Mrs. Applejack was in the classroom when she overheard the gang trying to come up with an excuse to get out of school. The kids didn't know she was listening until she leaned out the window and said, "I hope you kids aren't trying to come up with an excuse to get out of school, and I hope you're not planning on playing truant again. You're all in enough trouble as it is." The kids didn't dare do any of those things for 2 weeks. Then on a Monday morning they went into school to find they had a different teacher. Kicker asked, "Where's Mrs. Applejack, miss?" She's off sick with the flu and she won't be back for a while, so I'm going to be teaching you all until she comes back." The kids were happy with this news because the new teacher didn't know them. The following day they decided to play truant again, but yet again their parents were out shopping, and as soon as the kids saw them they ran off. However, their parents had seen them and they were smacked hard on their bums and sent to bed early again. The following day the kids went to school, but as per usual they didn't want to be there. They tried to find an excuse to get themselves sent home, but try as they may, they couldn't think of anything. Then that day at lunchtime the kids decided they'd had enough of school and they went to leave when they thought the teacher wasn't looking. However, she saw them and she asked them, "Just where do you kids think you are going?" Nowhere, miss," said Grumpy. "I should think not. It's time to go back to class, so off you all go." A few days later the kids didn't want to go to school, but they knew that if they played truant again they'd be even more severely punished than they were last time. When they were on their way to school, Grumpy came up with an idea. "I have an idea, guys. Mrs. Applejack is off with the flu. We could tell the new teacher that we have the flu too." Everyone agreed to this. All the way to school they ran about like crazy. By the time they got there their faces were bright red and they were all hot. They went up to the teacher and Grumpy said, "Excuse me, miss, but we don't feel well. I think we all have the flu." "Well, I must admit you do all look sick. I think it would be best if you all go home before anyone else gets it." "Yes, miss," said all the kids whilst pretending to sneeze all at the same time. The kids walked slowly out of the schoolroom and off the school grounds, and then they ran as fast as they could to the swing. They stayed away from school for a week. However, on the Friday their teacher phoned their parents to see how they were. Of course the kids' parents didn't have a clue what she was talking about. When the kids got home it had been raining and they were all soaking wet. Again they were smacked hard on their bums. This time it was their dads who gave them the punishment, and they hit them harder than their mothers ever had. The following day all the kids woke up with the flu, and all their parents could do was laugh and tell them it served them right. Instead of being allowed to stay in bed and rest, they were made to do extra chores. And all the schoolwork their teacher had left at their houses for them to do that they'd missed out on by pretending to be sick. The kids stayed off school for a week, but every day Mrs. Applejack went to their homes and left schoolwork for them to do. When the kids were well enough they went back to school, and it seemed at first that they'd learnt their lesson. However, it didn't take long for